Welcome to the Smarter Driver Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Rick August. Here we talk about the things that really irk you when driving, because driving is emotional and we like nothing better than to police other drivers. And this is termed social driving. Here we give you tips and strategies to be a safer, smarter driver and help you get your license. Car's all gassed up. Let's get going.
Hi there, smart drivers, talking to you about speed, speeding, and speeders. And we're going to answer the question, should I drive the posted speed limit or should I keep up with traffic flow after I get my license? Because the question definitively for your driver's test is that you have to drive the posted speed limit. We're going to give you information about that and engage in a discussion about speed, speeders, and speeding tonight. Stick around, that's what we're talking about. So tonight we're talking about speed, and my contention is that speed is not the cause of crashes. Saying that speed is the cause of traffic crashes is like saying Lego is the reason that you step on it in the middle of the night when you're walking around your house. Lego is not responsible for you stepping on it on the floor because your kids were playing with it. No more than speed causes traffic crashes. It's just a matter of course. And the other reason that I said that, and I'll reiterate this, twice the number of crashes happen in cities as happen on highways. All right? However, twice the number of fatalities happen on highways because speed is a contributing factor to the severity of the crash. And everything within our marketing culture tells us that driving fast is sexy, makes us successful. Makes us virile, especially men, because most of these fast cars, sports cars, driving fast, all of this is directed towards men, not so much women. However, it's coming on board, and many cars have been, car advertisements have been directed towards women, and women are on the same kind of risk scale as men are. Not so much, but it's coming, it's getting there. Good stuff to have a look at. Defensive Driving for New Drivers podcast over at the Smart Drive Test website. Corey will put these links up for you in the comments there. And as well, look at chance events that could fail you on your driver's test. Yellow lights, big trucks parked on the side of the road unloading freight, crashes, construction, all these types of things could potentially be surprises that could cause you to fail your driver's test. Have a look at those. And for people watching on the replay, I'll definitely put that down in the description for you. Have a look at those resources. And as well, I just want you to see this where somebody asked if they could legally speed 5 to 10 kilometers an hour over the posted speed limit. And this was asked on Twitter to one of the former police officer who runs a Twitter page over there. And he responded, a viewer asked if they could legally drive, and the key word is legally here, 5 to 10 kilometers over the posted speed limit. Sean's answer, no, the speed limit is just that. The maximum speed you're legally allowed to drive. Anything over is speeding, and speeding is illegal. All right, according to black letter law. And I've talked about black letter law before. Black letter law is what is written in legislation. Now, what happens in courts, it can be something different, but legally, yes, he's absolutely right. And then, of course, there's the disclaimer, but will you actually get a ticket for going 5 kilometers an hour over the posted speed limit? You could potentially, but it's not going to hold up in court, and I'll tell you why it won't hold up in court. That said, officers typically focus on drivers going much faster. That doesn't make it legal, though, and any ticket can impact your driving record and insurance. Now, I will tell you, from personal experience, I have ridden in cars with police officers, and they are here in Canada, they are driving 10 kilometers an hour over the posted speed limit. In the States, it's 5 miles an hour over the posted speed limit. And the reason they're doing that is because they know that they will not get pulled over by other police. The reason is that radar speed cameras have a tolerance of 3 miles per hour. So in other words, if the radar gun says that you're doing 100 kilometers an hour, it could be anywhere between 97 and 103 kilometers an hour. There's a 3 kilometer an hour tolerance on that technology, and they know that it has to be much higher than that for it to stand up in court. This is the reason why it's about technology, of why police officers will not give you a ticket for going 10 kilometers an hour over the posted speed limit or 5 miles an hour in the States. All right, kinetic energy. I talked about as speed increases, the kinetic energy, the energy in the vehicle increases exponentially, which means that the faster you're going, the more damage there's going to be. So the faster you're going, the more damage there's going to be. It's because the amount of energy, kinetic energy, the forward motion in the vehicle increases exponentially. So if you're doing 20 kilometers an hour, there's X amount of energy. If you double that, the amount of energy in the vehicle quadruples, 4 times the amount of energy. If you increase the speed by 5 times, say from 20 kilometers an hour to 100 kilometers an hour, there's now 25 times the amount of energy in the vehicle. And this is one of the components that we teach for air brakes and braking larger vehicles. This becomes important. The amount of speed requires exponentially more braking force to be able to get the vehicle stopped and slowed down. And as you know, in car crashes, there are 3 different crashes. There's the vehicle hitting something, there's the vehicle occupants, those people inside the vehicle coming to a stop inside the vehicle. So you hitting the steering wheel, hitting the seat belt, hitting the dashboard, going through the glass, those types of things. And then the last collision that happens is your internal organs crashing against your chest, your brain crashing against your skull, and those types of things. So those are the 3 different crashes that happen as energy increases, as speed increases in the vehicle. Definitions of speeding. And the definitions of speeding do not lend themselves easily. Going faster than the posted speed limit is the most common. This is the one that people know about. The other definitions of speeding: faster than the traffic flow. So most traffic flow, as we said, is going to be going 5 miles an hour over the posted speed limit, 10 kilometers an hour, and people are driving, instead of 110 kilometers an hour, they're driving 120 kilometers an hour. Driving faster than me. Lots of people will say the person was speeding because they were going faster than me and I was doing the posted speed limit, or at least they believe and hold the conviction that they are going the posted speed limit. Faster than the conditions of the roadway will allow. So people driving too fast and crazy when it's snowing or in the rain or those types of things. And then in 2016, for the most, the National Highway Traffic Safety Association in 2016 said, and for the most of the past 2 decades, around 1/3 of all fatalities were caused by speeding drivers. Okay, 1/3. So they're claiming that 33% of crashes and fatalities were caused by drivers who were speeding. So what definition of speeding are they saying is causing traffic crashes? Because there are different definitions of speeding, okay? Speeding has been something that has been an issue for motorized traffic since its beginning. It was even an issue for policing traffic before motorized traffic, because horses and horse riders could be charged under the Fast and the Furious, charged with fast and furious driving. It's not just a movie. It actually comes from legislation, British legislation prior to the advent of the motor car. Motorized cars, however, forever changed policing and increased police powers. This is where we got on-the-spot tickets, because courts soon became backed up with traffic infractions and they couldn't deal with it anymore, so they had to increase police powers to be able to deal with the truly overwhelming amount of traffic tickets, and mostly speeding, that came into the courts. Speed forever changed the urban and rural landscape and automotive safety and driving culture. And I actually wrote an article about this, Spinning Our Wheels, which looks at the history of the 20th century in traffic safety and the different things that have been implemented to make people safer. And it really wasn't until up until the 1960s that automotive safety actually became something that automotive manufacturers could actually sell. Because before that, automotive manufacturers were like, yeah, that'll never sell. And it was actually Volvo who brought forth, the seatbelt, which was adopted from aviation, and began to put those in their vehicles, and allowed other auto manufacturers, they didn't patent it, they allowed other companies to be able to use that. And then, of course, in the early 1970s, when traffic fatalities, traffic deaths were completely out of control, that they legislated that seatbelts had to be worn. And I'm actually old enough to remember when they brought in seatbelt laws in the early 1970s, and people saying that there was no way that they were ever going to wear seatbelts in cars. I can remember my parents saying that. And I can remember my parents with the argument that, what happens if you crash into a lake or a body of water? You're not going to be able to get out of the car. Well, the piece of information that you need to know, that if you crash into a body of water and you're not wearing your seatbelt, the possibility of you still being conscious are very low. You're probably going to be knocked out because of the crash if you're not wearing your seatbelt. Whereas if you're wearing a seatbelt and you crash into a body of water or your vehicle catches on fire, you're probably still going to be conscious that you can undo your seatbelt and actually escape the vehicle that's in the body of water, those types of things. So these were some of the things that were going on with seatbelts and seatbelt use in the early 1970s. So I talked about Australia. I talked about its very rigid and very in-your-face traffic safety program. Australia probably has one of the most rigorous and stringent traffic safety programs in the world. They have widespread use of speed cameras throughout the country, and it is unlikely that you will see anybody exceeding the posted speed limit in Australia because of the widespread use of traffic cameras there. If the speed limit is 100 kilometers an hour and you are doing 100 kilometers an hour, you are probably the fastest vehicle on the road. And 100 kilometers an hour for our friends in the United States is 62 miles an hour. So you're not going to be going very fast. As I talked about the Autobahn, nobody points a finger at the Autobahn and says, look at the high number of crashes that are happening on the Autobahn, which, as many of you know, does not have speed limits and is known for drivers doing 200 kilometers an hour plus, which is 110, 120 miles an hour. Maybe somebody can look that up for me and get the exact number for me. Here in Canada, the Trans-Canada Highway across British Columbia in the last few years, I can't say last few years because I was still working at the driving school when they increased the speed limit from 100 kilometers an hour to 120 kilometers an hour. So they increased it from 62 miles an hour to 75 miles an hour. And in the last 10 years, that speed limit has not been put back. Okay, they've not lowered the speed limit back to 100 because there were unacceptable numbers of traffic crashes caused by speed. So a few case studies there to have a think about in terms of places where the speed limit is higher. Where you get into trouble is with speed differentials. Speed differentials is the different speeds between different road user groups, and I would argue that this is why we have so many more numbers of crashes that happen within cities, because of the speed differentials between the different road user groups. Your vehicle and a bicycle, for example. Your vehicle and a pedestrian, for example. We have to control speed, as was said before, to manage space around our vehicles and have time in which to work. And we also have to understand the ebb and flow of attention that is required when we're driving, because as I mentioned earlier, there are some places along the roadway and when you're driving that require high amounts of driver attention, and there are other places where you can allow your attention to wane a little bit. You're not on high alert. You're not looking and observing and manipulating the controls of the vehicle at a very high level. So there are times that you can allow your attention to wane. Mapping intersections, tracking road users. 25% of traffic fatalities in North America are vulnerable road users, cyclists, kids on skateboards, scooters, those types of things. So what we can think about in terms of vulnerable road users, those people that are most likely to die in a car crash, is the fact that they have a very different speed than that of cars. So there's a big speed differential. This is a contributing factor to car crashes on our roadways, is speed differentials. And whether that speed differential is the difference of speed between your vehicle and a fixed object, you know, the fixed object is obviously going 0 and whatever speed that you're going, but also the speed differential between your vehicle and an oncoming vehicle in a head-on crash is another speed differential that you have to consider when you're driving. Summertime is the highest number of crashes in the world. You can look at that anywhere, and if you look at the United States, for example, the highest number of crashes happen in the American Southeast, the American Southwest, because they have summer most of the time. Arizona, Nevada, West Texas, those are the places that have the most number of crashes during the year in the United States. And it's the same thing with Australia. You can argue that they don't have winter, they don't have adverse driving conditions, so most of the time in Australia they have a very high crash rate, and despite their very vigorous traffic safety program, it's not mitigating those traffic deaths. We talked about the culture of speeding, that it is promoted amongst automotive manufacturers and advertising. It's also advertised within Hollywood films, but it's also, interestingly enough, policing speeding doesn't work because it sets up a conflict between you and police officers, that they're policing you and you're doing something wrong, and that effect of getting a speeding ticket only lasts for a couple of months. It does not have a lasting effect. The other part of this, speed cameras, the culture of driving, every time that I was driving in the summertime and I had my GPS on my phone and there was a police officer along the roadway, somebody was reporting it, Google was reporting it, and you can look at this and people will tell you that there is a speed trap ahead. Even Google will tell you that there is a speed trap ahead. So there is a culture of not getting caught for speeding. The entire industry outside of policing, outside of traffic safety, is telling you that you should be able to get away with speeding. And only in this day and age, if you get a speeding ticket, you're a dum-dum. You're not paying attention to technology that is available to you, that is telling you where the speed checks are along the roadways. Because as you can see here in the image, I'll just make this bigger for you. If you look on Google, it will tell you where the speed checks are along your route when you're driving. Okay, social driving, speeding up through yellow lights. Okay, it's better to, the other part of culture of driving is that it's better to speed than to be late for an appointment. If you're trucking or you're doing some other type of work, you get paid piecemeal, you get paid per mile. Therefore, you're going to drive faster so that you can make more miles over the course of the day, and not stopping at stop signs if you're a professional driver because you want to hurry up and get there as fast as possible. Get there-itis. It's a real phenomena amongst professional drivers, and just about anybody who drives anywhere, they need to get there as quickly as possible. What can you do about this? Manage space in front of your vehicle. You can always manage that space in front of your vehicle because you need time to work. You need time to observe, predict, figure out what's going on in front of your vehicle. Be proactive and predictable. And as I said, I do counsel you, not professionally, but keeping up with traffic flow allows you to be more predictable on the roadways. Stay away from other road users, stay away from other fixed objects, because if you're not near anything, it's less likely that you're going to hit something. Radar detectors. We had a conversation here, and I was telling you about this on one of the comments where somebody said that you can get yourself a radar detector, i.e. a hound dog. They're not legal in Canada. You cannot use radar detectors in Canada, but in the United States you can. Right? And I was corrected by a smart driver about this. But as I said, if you get pulled over and the police officer does in fact know that you have a radar detector in your vehicle, you get pulled over, they look at you as a professional speeder, and it is not likely that you are going to get off with a warning if you have one of these in your vehicle. All right, good luck on your driver's test, and remember, pick the best answer. Not necessarily the right answer. So it is better to be late for an appointment than to speed. Elevator fan, yes. Professionally, that's what we're going to say in terms of traffic safety, but that's not the perception within our culture. We don't want to be late for an appointment, especially, say, for example, that we're going for a job interview. If we're going for a job interview and we're late, we're going to speed to get there, to try and get there and make up time to get there on time. It's not likely, 95% of the population is not going to stay at the posted speed limit and be late for the appointment. They don't want to explain to somebody why they were late when they could simply speed and make up the time. It's even worth the risk of getting a speeding ticket because they don't want to be embarrassed showing up to an appointment late, or being, worse yet, being admonished, getting in trouble for being late. For example, you have a job interview, you show up late, now you can't have the job interview. So these are the things that are going to happen. Damon, there are several residential areas with a legal speed limit of 30 miles an hour, which I do not think is wise. I grew up in a subdivision where there was a strictly enforced 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. Yeah, in most places, most residential areas now in the United States and in Canada are putting in speed limits of 20, 25-mile-an-hour speed limits. The reason for that is because pedestrians and vulnerable road users are at a much higher likelihood of surviving a crash at those speeds. NS, I drive slightly fast, managing the space in front of me. I have to brake almost daily due to a zigzagging speed that takes too many chances. I wish the police would target the aggressive speeding. Crazy. Okay, so NS, if you're braking all the time, you need to increase your following distance in front. Now, this is the other piece about it, that when I drive, I do keep up with the flow of traffic. However, one of the things that I will say is that I never compromise that space in front of my vehicle. I always have that space in front of my vehicle. I always stop in traffic one vehicle length back from the traffic in front of me. And the reason for that is I am convinced and have the professional conviction that it's not speed that causes car crashes. As I said, it's space. Improper speed and space management. You got to control speed to have that space in front of your vehicle. If you have that space in front of your vehicle, you have time to observe. You have time to interpret traffic patterns and understand the actions of individual road users, and therefore you can be proactive in your driving. But I will never be right off the bumper of the vehicle in front of me. It's simply too dangerous, and you don't have time to read and respond to what's happening with traffic. So you always have to have that space in front of your vehicle.
Thanks for listening to the Smarter Driver Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Rick August. If there's something you'd like us to talk about or something that really irks you about driving and the things that other drivers do, leave us a comment. Hit that like and subscribe button, and be sure to check out the Smarter Driver course package if you want skills and abilities to become a safer, smarter driver and significantly reduce your chances of being involved in a crash. Thanks again, all the best, and remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great day.